Hello children, today we will continue with our lesson Imperialism. Imperialism is a political system in which a rich and powerful country control other country which is not as rich and powerful as itself. Imperialism is a policy of extending a country's rule over foreign nation, often by military forces or by gaining political and economic control over other areas. Now today we will study about imperialism in Asia. By the year 1900, virtually the whole of South Asia was under European rule. Many companies were formed. The discovery of the sea route to India by Vasco da Gama in 1498, a Portuguese explorer, opened up new possibilities and opportunities for trade in India. With this, many companies from Portugal, Netherlands, Great Britain, France established their trading link with India. The English East India Company was formed in 1600. The Dutch East India Company was formed in 1602. French set up the French East India Company in September 1664. Bitter rivalries took place between these countries, and at the end, the British emerged victorious. This led to the political subjugation of India under Britain for 2 years. For this reason, India was nearly for 200 years under the British rule, as the Britishers came to India as traders, but here there was no political system and the Britishers managed to keep control over India for nearly 200 years. Cash crops were produced in place of food crops, leaving the people starving. British manufactured goods destroyed local industries, and even the educated Indians were considered inferior to the British. Throughout these 2 centuries, the British ruled with an iron hand, instigating many revolts and rebellions. Many revolts and many rebellions took place in these 200 years against the British rule because they treated Indians as inferior and they themselves were the superior people. Imperialism in China began with the Opium War between the British and the Chinese government. The British, with their superior military strength, were victorious in China and through the Treaty of Nanking obtained trading rights in 5 ports in China. USA joined this in later. The United States, which entered late, prompted the open door policy, which proposed the equal trading rights to China to be allowed for all nations. By the 1900s, China saw a rising sentiment against foreigners, which finally exploded into the Boxer Rebellion, which took place between 1899 to 1901. A Chinese secret organization called the Society of Righteous and Harmonious Fists led an uprising in northern China against the spread of Western and Japanese influence there. This is Boxer Rebellion. The Boxer Rebellion failed, but it convinced the Chinese that reforms were necessary. It gave the lesson to the Chinese that changes has to be brought. A new republic was set up, freeing China from imperial control. Now, what are the effects of imperialism? Imperialism rulers set up educational institutions based on the European model, constructed modern roads and railways, postal system, introduced modern industry and banking system in their colonies. It brought about political and administrative unity and led to the introduction of Western ideas of nationalism, democracy and freedom. In India also, the Britishers introduced English language, they improved the roads here, they introduced railways, postal system, and they also helped the social reformers and removed the evil practices like widow remarriage, child marriage, and sati pratha. New system of education was also introduced by the Europeans in their colonies. Exploitations of colonies for cheap raw material by imperial powers crippled the local industries and ruined the farmer communities. High tax rate, exploitative policies resulted in drain of wealth, causing poverty and backwardness. The divide and rule policies which was followed by the Britishers, the using of raw materials and bringing the manufactured goods to India to be sold in India, all these things drained the wealth of India to British, and India became a poor